Welcome back, and we are moving into our second half of our show for today, where we will be having a panel conversation about getting young people involved in positive activities to help to reduce crime and violence. And we have 3 Belizean young men on set with us who are going to be talking about how they are individually working with young people and our young men themselves who have allowed sports, arts, and music to help them to find a better path in life. We have with us Darwin Leslie, obviously well-known basketball player, and also one of the leaders of the Belize Bank Bulldogs, as well as the Peace and Light Foundation. Right. All right. We have in the middle Joseph Stamp. Everybody knows you as the professional dancer, but also the founder behind Vertical Level, working with young people to get engaged in expressive arts. And on the end, we have not usually a very talkative man, loves to be behind the scenes, but is a very successful music producer and publisher, works with almost all the Belizean artists and international artists now as well, building the beats behind the songs. We have Kendoyll Simpson. Good morning and welcome. And thank you for being here.
Morning, and thanks for the invite.
All right. So let me just set the backdrop a bit. So we've been talking about crime over the past couple of Mondays, and we've been looking at it from the police department. We've been talking with criminologists. We've been talking with social workers. And we've really just been trying to put the issue that we're facing in this country into context. And we realize that there is a lot of work that is taking place by individuals like yourself, that you are doing your own part in picking away at the problem at the grassroots. And I want to ask, just as an opening to the conversation, what's your perspective about how crime and violence are affecting the young people within the communities you work?
Crime is devastating, you know, and the sad thing is that when I was growing up, it was mostly the older guys, you know, like my older brother and them was once in a gang. But the sad thing is, in our generation now, I realize that I could have never thought that it would have been the older guys recruiting the 8-year-olds, the 9-year-olds, you know, the 10-year-olds. So, you know, that's a devastating side about it, about crime in our country, that it has become a younger generation now, you know, and that's sad, because we all know that the younger people is our future, you know, and the present, and they are also the past, you know, so we got to be very careful.
Yeah.
I think you said it, you know, Marlon, the culture of crime has begun to define this generation, you know, and it's sad because they've embraced this culture of crime as an attitude, as a belief, as a logic, as a value system, for their own reason, sometimes because of poverty, sometimes because, like what Darwin said, because of access, because of older people, but it's become something that defines young people. And it's difficult, because how do you say no when there are no alternatives, or when alternatives are limited? So that's a problem in itself.
Yeah.
I could second what he said, because we came from the same neighborhood. So, you know, you had the older guys who, you know, recruit the you know, younger guys. And I hope that, you know, through music, I could, you know, be an influence to younger people. And I do the same thing they do, but recruit the younger folks into music, you know.
Let's play, just for a moment, a what-if game. What if Darwin, Joseph, and Kendoyll never fell into the craft that you have followed? What if you never played basketball, never discovered your performing art talent, or never even had a laptop or whatever you needed to produce your music? Where do you think you would have been?
Well, it's a 50-50 situation, because I was fortunate to have been brought up with both of my parents, you know, and usually what I notice in the society is that most of the kids that look outside their families because they come from probably a broken home, you know. So, and the next 50% is that I could have actually joined a gang, because, you know, me and my good friend over here, we were we lived on a gang street, you know. We lived between Crawl Road and Sopal Street, you know. Me and him lived on Benbow Street. So we had about 3 gangs right around us, you know. So 50% I could have become a gang member easily as that, but I was fortunate to have a mom and dad, you know. So
Yeah.
so that was the 50% that kept me away from it, you know.
Yeah.
So that was my situation.
Gang?
Yeah.
Gang. I had the leadership qualities to join a gang and run a crew. So I think it would have been gangs.
Yeah.
I was between both at one point. You know, I had, I was going to school at Wesley Upper, so you know, a lot of the students there was affiliated. So I had to balance my life between, you know, just saying, well, I'll be a friend, but this is how far we're gonna go. And then I was also into music, so I had other friends who were, you know, on the path, the right path, I would say. So it's 50-50.
It is, I'll be honest in saying this, it's difficult sitting here as a co-host when I share some of the same experiences as you guys. So if I would put my 2 cents in there as well, I think if it weren't for me being able to pursue my dream as this being something I was passionate about, the media, I would have been at that 50% mark as well. And that's the common thing the 4 of us men share here, where we come from certain neighborhoods, yes, but that exposure and that influence was always there. So like, in your case, for instance, my situation and yours are very, very similar, where I grew up with both my mom and my dad. So while they instilled specific values in us growing up, the moment you walk out of your front door and that's all you see around you is gang culture and what have you, it's very difficult. It makes it more challenging for you to keep on the straight and narrow when all your friends are the ones who are saying, bye, come hang out, join me, make we represent this crew or whatever, and they can't mess with you whatsoever. More so when you're a teenager where you're learning more about yourself, learning manhood.
And you want to belong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Identity. That's the crisis.
Talk to us about some of those challenges that you guys faced as well.
I think it hit on the head, and Marlene said it, belonging, that sense of who you are. Even in the process of art, you learn that you grow. And imagine before that, you're like a blank slate. Anybody can fill that identity for you, you know, and that becomes a part of the struggle. You know, somebody comes and says, be this. And if that looks, and the funny thing about it is that Darwin mentioned devastation. Crime looks like an identity to some people, because what else can I be? And we've done recent research from the Gill report. If I can't be something big that's positive, I'll be something big that's negative. Either way, I'm gonna disappear. I'm here, and Belize sees me. So that's the reality. And that's what I went through to try and figure out, I want to be something good, but not negative. You know, I want to be something big, but not negative. So.
The challenge is huge, because I can give 2 incidents, you know. I remember one time walking right out of my gate and a guy just ride past and drop a 38 gun in my garbage. You know, I was just 11, 12 years old, you know, and in the sport of basketball, you have a lot of gang members that play basketball, you know, especially growing up, going to the Princess Royal Youth Hostel. They had a crew around there that used to name Kick Down Fence Bloods, you know what I mean? And whenever you go to the park, they are there, you know. I saw them punched out some guys' teeth. You know, you see a lot of stuff, and that is still in the sport of basketball. You have bully in basketball still, you know. You have gang members that want to be basketball players. You know, you have their child that want to be basketball players. So the challenge is very huge out there, you know. But I will make this statement early in the conversation, you know. Spirituality, you know, had a huge influence in my life, and it still does, you know. I am forever grateful for the fact that, you know, my mom didn't give us a choice. It was not a choice to go to church, you know. You had to go to church, you know. So, the challenge is huge.
Yeah, well, in my case, I grew up in a Christian home. My dad is a pastor. My mom, you know, fellowship as well. So we had a Christian upbringing. And both my parents are musicians. right? So that
Oh,
was,
so that what if would have never happened for you. Yeah.
you know, so, well, you know, I always saw instruments around the house. So
Yeah.
eventually we start picking them up, me and my sister, because my sister is a musician as well.
Yeah.
We picked up, well, my first instrument was the guitar, I believe. And then, you know, I started learning other instruments like the drums. My mom is a drummer, I learned from. My dad plays guitar and keyboard, bass, multiple instruments. I learned the others from him. And then eventually it became a part of me. And then I started hanging with people who are musicians as well. And that's how I, you know, kind of lean over to that 50%.
Yeah.
Where, you know, music became priority for me, you know. And
When you hear the name Darwin populously, right? Immediately people think basketball, and you have become synonymous with the Bulldogs, right? So everybody says, okay, Bulldogs basketball. What made you decide to use your popularity or your fame, for instance, to work with young people, to keep them on the straight and narrow? How did you come to that realization? Was it your past experiences? Did you have friends, for instance, who died or went to prison? Or any turning point in your life where you realized maybe it's best for you to be that change in the young lives?
Well, I think Marlene asked me that question a couple of shows ago, you know, and I'm going to answer it again, you know. I never planned this, you know, but I was someone that, we have a statement that is PUSH, push, you know, pray until something happens, you know. So that was something that was instilled in me, and I also, even up to today, I pray, you know, to God that let him lead me in the way that he wants to lead me, you know. And when I look, bam, I am in front of 65, 75 young men, kids, and, you know, I was prepared because when I pray, you know, I don't pray and forget. I pray for something consistent, and it happened, you know. It's God-driven. I did not plan this, but at the same time, when the opportunity came to me, I grasped it completely, you know, because I see how huge the work is, you know, and I know that I'm capable of doing the work, you know. So being around so many kids, you know, it even molded me into a better man, a better father, a better brother, you know, a better son, you know. So God took control of that situation, and that's why I'm in this situation. I always tell young people that take full advantage of this time, you know, that I'm with them, because I know that there's going to be a next stage, you know, that God is going to open for me, you know. So I always tell them take full advantage of my time right now, you know. So they have created Darwin, let's say, to become this individual I am in society, you know, and I'm not backing down from it at all.
And what about you, Joseph?
I think I echo that. You see
The
a
opportunity
community.
fell on you, or you?
Right, I think seeing the opportunity to do something good and to make an impact, knowing where you start. I remember I could record, think about what people like, having people like Urson Picard in my life, Miss Beverly Smith Lopez, looking Miss Gordon Edwards, and seeing what those people were doing with the little resources that they had, and deciding to make an impact, you know, and trying to know that your calling is beyond you. So I definitely echo what Darwin says, knowing that there is a purpose that God gave you, and you could decide to make that be about you and live in ego, live in pride about it, or you could make something better about Belize. And so young people literally look for somebody to instill something in them. You can decide if you're gonna own that and make them be a criminal element on your behalf, or you could give them something that will build hope within them, no? And so I decided to do something that would impact their lives in a good way.
Well, in my case, you know, eventually I started learning. I went to SJC. I met this guy, Ramiro Hernandez. He was the one who I would say, you know, kind of molded me into the producing game. I was just a musician before then, and, you know, started picking up stuff from him. I got my first recording program from him, and you know, eventually I start, you know, doing my own research. learning about audio engineering. Then we used to make our own little mixes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, I start, reaching out to different artists and, people who have talent. I can remember T.R. Shine. I met T.R. Shine like many years ago before he was, he is T.R. Shine now. And we used to always like clash and, and that's how it started, I just eventually meeting people and, they found that I was good at what I did and
So when you meet a young man who's interested in music, what do you do to help them develop their craft and perhaps find this as a source of, it could be income but it could just be a general outlet for their expression?
Well, he was talking to me about one of my high school friends. What I would do, like if they have talent, I would say, hey, here's a beat. See what you can do with it. See if you can write a song. I would help write. We record it. In terms of income, there are some people that I would, if they agree, I could help them publish their music and try to get royalties from. From
Let me ask you guys a question that has stayed with me from the time we decided on this conversation leading up to the show. We're 4 relatively well-known and successful black men. But the journey for us hasn't been the smoothest.
Right.
I gather that much the same in my life, I had ups and downs and challenges becoming who I am, the same for the 3 of you guys across from me. In the context of crime and violence and the generation that we come from, right? Do you guys feel as though at some point perhaps you were stereotyped based on the way we dressed, based on who we associated with, based on the fact that
where you grew up?
Yeah, where we grew up and where we go to school and what have you. Did you guys face some of those very same challenges?
Yes.
It still happens up to today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, the person that I've turned out to be, a person with dreadlocks and beard, and that stereotype right there on itself, you know what I mean? And growing up, like I said, coming from Benbow Street, you've always run into the police. That's just a normal thing. You've been searching for generations, I've been searching for generations, like I said, even up to today. So this stereotype is real, but at the same time too, I don't think it's a south side, north side thing. Because playing basketball, you have friends on the north side, you go on the north side and play, and believe me, gang is over the north side, drugs is over the north side, violence is over the north side,
Guns,
police harassment is over the north side, stereotype is over the north side also, So, people like try to separate it, but you can't separate it, You are what you are, but stereotype is real, and honestly, I would say deal with that right now at this moment, just due to the way that I decided to look.
No, I think Darwin is right. There's an attitude of, we can't have an attitude of division, because I think we have to move beyond the north side, south side dialogue where youth are concerned, or young people are concerned, because to me, it doesn't build Belize. It doesn't help Belize develop beyond this particular period in time. But then there is a reality as well. When you go on that side, you work with young people, you see the aggression. And it's because I've been harassed by police when I was younger. So I wouldn't say no, but in terms of growing up in Genosha, that's a reality. And when I wanted to be a lawyer at some point, because I said, people have to defend the innocent like this, because you get harassed, you get pulled around, you get smacked around, and you still end up getting a charge, a threat of a charge, even though you're innocent, as if you don't have any rights, And so once you meet an officer that does not know you, you get the same disrespect as a young person who they might think is into something negative. So it's still a reality. So there is a stereotype that we have to accept and discuss and understand that is a problem in terms of working on the south side.
Let me ask you, because you are directly, and I mean directly outside of the school system, working with young people. And I want to ask, when you hear the dialogue that takes place in the wider community, do you feel that we're really in touch with the issues that are affecting these teens and children who are living in these areas that are so exposed to crime and violence?
No.
What are we missing?
We're missing the fact that it's not just simple as saying they're young people. There is a home culture, a community. There's a lot of subcultures that Belize has that we sometimes ignore. When you meet on Charles, and there's also other psychological issues that we ignore. You often see teachers, and I'm not bang teachers because I like to teach. So I'm not being negative on teachers, but there's some teachers sometimes who put kids out of the classroom because they're aggressive, because they're unmannerly, and the issue and the category is always disrespectful. He not got no manners. He might have an issue that you have not really discussed with a counselor. So there's something deeper rooted in that problem that we're not seeing. And why? Because sometimes the culture of aggression is in the community, because that's how that child has to survive. You don't know, going to a shop with some kids nowadays, it's not as simple as going to a shop. You don't know how much people are beat up, take their money. It's becoming a war zone for some of these kids. And that's the reality. I work with kids in Mayflower through the youth department, one of the programs they have there. And those kids, day one, I was like, oh my goodness, these are baby's kids. Maybe you guys saw a cartoon. But these kids are all over the place. I mean, but I sat back and I said, they're not bad. There's something I'm missing. It was my approach. Because these kids perhaps are even used to being yelled at. I'm not saying that, but I don't know what the issue might be. So I have to look at it and understand it before I judge the kids and say, let's just eliminate these children, or just get rid of them out of the classroom or out of the program. There is something deeper, Marlene, and we have to really discuss that.
Now for you,
The disconnection is real, because like if Mr. Stamp just deal with the kids when they come to him to dance, that's not enough. And I sure, him and my other friend here, you have to go to their house. When you go to their kid's house and you realize, when they live 24 hours, and when they come that you don't know that, because they already know that I'm a disciplined person, but you have to be disciplined. So when they come around us, they know they have to come with certain principles. But when you break out of that and you go to their houses, the reality is really no. When there are kids that go through single parent or no parent, right now, I have to say it, and that might be right, but I don't think grandparents can raise these children their days. I live in a yard with my grandparents, and they were strict, and I had to listen to them. But right now, with these generation of kids coming up, I don't think grandchildren can raise them. Most of them are home with our grandchildren that probably can't even move. They are going through physical abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse. And if you don't leave that comfort zone from basketball, because it's not about basketball, it's not about dancing, it's not about just music.
Beyond that.
It's about changing that individual that came to you, because that little child came to you because he saw something in you. So you have to break that barrier and go to their home. I went to some homes and I came up rough. Some kids living right now is living some life that I never dreamt about, poverty at that level, and that's sad. And we can only do so much, Only so much we can do. Now, if they put us in positions to make a real change, then we're talking about something different. But these kids are going through some stuff that we never went through, Marlene.
Don't you believe, or would you agree that the three of you have a certain innate leadership quality, right? Where people naturally gravitate towards you guys, right? I could imagine that, for instance, people seek you out because you're arguably the best producer in your craft when it comes to music. Young people, older people, whomsoever. But they see something in you that says, you know what? If I go to Kendoyll will handle me correct, right? From the music perspective. But at the same time, they are coming to you with a lot of other issues than just music, right? Maybe music is the outlet, but they're coming to you with the rage, the emotion, everything they come to you. How do you then, for instance, in your and I find your situation to be the most unique. You'll forgive me, guys, right? I find your situation to be the most unique because you are in a position where oftentimes when you deal with musicians, art imitates life, life imitates art, and what have you, right? So you're dealing with young rappers, for instance, who have the violent content or have the misogyny, they talk about woman, whatever it is. But then in your capacity as a leader, you're tasked with having to deal with these issues that they're bringing forward. How do you face that?
When working with artists who have that, I try not to censor them. You know, I believe that, you know, their lyrics is also a part of relief. You know, so, you know, even though I have a Christian upbringing, I wouldn't just like, you know, well, you can't cuss, you can't, you know. My job is to make sure the music is tight, the quality, the beat, everything. But I believe once I show them that, you know, I am not like you, but I can work with you, I think it kind of steer them in a direction to say, you know, maybe I could let go this anger eventually, you know. Maybe, you know, it's just a phase when they release all of those lyrics, you know, eventually they could gain love in their heart, I don't know. You know, so you just have to work with people, see them at the level they are, don't refuse anybody. You don't try to act like you're better than, you know, an individual just because you have a different upbringing from them. So I work with everybody. I try to understand them. Of course, I will impart some, you know, knowledge, some wisdom. Hey, if you continue down this path, this so and so could happen. You know, we see examples of that every day. If you live a certain way, if you live by the gun, you die by the gun. You know, so I just try to work with everybody at their level.
Now, it's a fact. We know this. And in fact, there's studies, I'm sure we can cite in Belize, all over the world, that if we can get children and young people involved in positive development activities, sports, arts, music, any form of expression, their opportunities and the type of life they will have they already have a better chance. We have programs ongoing in the country. And I want to ask you, because you all have your own individual contribution separately. What is the biggest difference? Tell me your turnaround stories that you see with a child when they first come into basketball camp or first come out to dance or they first reach out to you with music. How do you see the turnaround that this expression lends them to believe that life doesn't have to be about gang and the streets and crime?
My youth hostel girls would be my story. 2 years ago, it was difficult to even start teach a dance step. As Darwin said, in the context of the bigger matter, that's the least thing. So it's moving towards their humanity, understanding who their challenge is. So definitely my youth hostel girls, and seeing the transition that they're making now. And but it comes from also me understanding what their real needs are. You know, and respecting where they are. Like what Kendoyll said, knowing that these are young people. And I think the biggest mistake is thinking that programs are just supposed to have end results. And we do a nicely ceremony and the program done. And no, it's a human being. You know, it's a human being. And so if the program is not humane, then it's just you know, ink on paper. And so,
enrollment numbers doesn't mean transformation. I always say that.
It goes beyond that.
And a graduation doesn't mean follow up either, right?
I had a very senior basketball teacher, you know, that teach at ACC. He came one time and he watched a player that played on his ACC team played a tournament that we were hosting, and he watched the guy play the whole game and he came to me and he said, but Darwin, it's a popular, what you do to that young man? Because he can't play for me at my school, he not going to say me. But like I said, it goes beyond basketball, you know? So it's like that connection where we made with that kid, taking him on trips, seeing another side of him, letting him sleep outside his house, see how he going around, apart from his parents, apart from his teachers, you know? So when that teacher came to me and said, Darwin, how that person going to surround you guys, you know, that right there make I know that you have to be 100% complete real with their kids that you know. Because if you not be 100, there are kids that you believe me, they're not going to give you that 100 respect also, you know. You need to break the barriers, break the chains. It's not just at school. Hang out with the child, see what he likes, buy an ice cream for him, sit down with him, have a one-on-one with him, go to his house, you know. So those things make a big difference. And when that teacher came to me and said, Darwin, I want to do to that child, I just smiled, you know, because you have to be real in this time too. You can't just be a teacher, a basketball coach, a music producer. No, it's far more than that.
You have to be an interventionist.
Yes, you have to be a brother, a father figure, you know, a mentor. And you can't be just a mentor when he's around, because he's watching you when you're not hanging with him, you know. So you have to be 100% real.
How do you not get, not overwhelmed, but disappointed when you lose some of your children from the programs? When you try and you realize that, you know, their attention has gone exactly where you didn't want it to go. And it happens in these, I mean, you can't have 100% success rate.
I've been there. It feels really tough because, like Darwin said, sometimes you put your all into it and you lose some, you know, and sometimes, sadly, sometimes the parents are the ones who are, you know, your adversaries in terms of the result you're trying to have, the impact you're trying to make, because they don't see the importance of it in the child's life, and so they don't support it. For example, I have kids who tell me that my must have to stay home because I have to mind so and so and so and so and so, and I can't come. And the program, you can see, is making an impact in the girl's life or the boy's life, but they can't do that because their brother or sister needs them because their mother said so, and then the cycle continues, you know. And so
that's interesting. And I could imagine parents probably say, basketball not make your money, music not make your money, go sell or go do something else that will make your money.
It dampens your spirit, you know, because like as you ask me that questions, you know, I start to feel real down, you know, because they have some that slip through, and the reality is that the connection that you make with them, they never forget, you know, because I have this one instance with a young man that is presently right now in jail for the second time, you know, and he's in a tough situation because, like I said, he came from a single parent home. Gang is immediately in his family, you know, so he only could have hanged around us for a certain time, you know, but when he went to jail and he came out, he met me at a food place and he said, Poppy, I will buy your food for you. I tell her, no, you're not for that. He said, no, I will buy your food for you. You know, a couple of weeks after that, I saw him on the news, went to jail again, you know, so it really dampens your spirit, and at the same time it motivates you to let you know that you need to get better in the craft that you're doing, because we don't want no one to slip through our cracks. We don't want no one to do that.
So let me ask you this, and I'm glad that you went in that direction. In terms of having to cope with losses, and I'm saying the loss of life here, because again, amongst the four of us, we have mentored, we have tried to follow up with some of the young men in this case who were once where we were, but not all of them have made it out alive. I know that I've had that experience to deal with, where I've tried talking to some young people, some heed advice, other people, because of the circumstances in their life, can't easily come back to the straight and narrow, and things happen. How have you guys been able to cope with tragedy in this context and maintaining that balance and that level-headedness to move forward with other kids you're mentoring?
Anger. Anger, I mean, the process was anger for me. So much anger that political figures got upset. And I didn't mean to be disrespectful or rude to anybody, whatever side they were on, blue, red, didn't matter to me. Once I saw my community, Jane suffering from crime, and I knew that, and I saw friends being buried, that had potential, because the graveyard have a lot of dreams buried in there. There's a lot, you know. I saw a piece on YouTube about where most of the ambitions and dreams are in the graveyard. We have a lot of that. Every day we're burying dreams, we're burying potential leaders every day. And at first for me it was anger, and then because of my faith, I began to gain hope again. Because I lost hope in what art could do, you know. I had to dig deeper. So as Darwin said, it's beyond that. Even for me, being exposed to dance and theater, after a while that didn't help. I had to rediscover what it really meant to dance and to do a theater. There's psychological benefits, the cultural benefits, not just the economic benefit, because we're still stuck there in Belize, you know, and we have to move beyond that. We have to understand, we have a civic center right now, and ideas and players and musicians are the ones that come together collectively and decide how we want to pay for that. That can't pay through rates, so. And I'm not being political, I'm just saying that talent has to pay for that building, because that building symbolizes the potential of talent. So if we're going to invest in infrastructure, then we have to invest in the programs and the people who are going to put that there. So for me, I had to rediscover, okay, look, okay, you guys are doing something on your level. Okay, good, let's see what I can do, come back in and re-engage my young people on my level, not saying leadership do this, leadership do that, what can I do? So I had to rediscover that.
Now I know one of the greatest challenges in development work, which is what you're doing, you're developing young people, is that it's not politically sexy.
No.
It's a hard sell.
Yeah.
You know, you don't, enrollment numbers don't matter because they don't mean transformation of life in your world. But then if you only have 5 people finishing a program on the outside, it seems like a wasted investment. It's a tough balancing act, and I know that it's something that from your end you have to continuously justify to people that yes, if I have 8 people from one community going out and doing theater, yes, it seems like only 8, but it's 8 lives multiplied by who they will raise. And your numbers are much bigger, but what would you say to people who say, oh, paying for another basketball tournament, paying for another art camp, paying for a music school, that's a waste of money. We need buildings, and we need streets, and we need the things that we can see. And if I'm a politician, I can show you a building, and I can show you a street, and it looks beautiful. I can show you a transformed young man or young woman.
I think here's a simple thing, Melanie. We have to move beyond emotional discussions when we talk about development in Belize, right? A politician has an agenda. I mean, that's the reality. And community changers have agendas too. We want to impact young people. We want, for example, for me, I want to stop seeing Genosha kids, youths get buried. That's my agenda. And so if we can come together and say, if you could build a nice street in Genosha, no problem. But here's a program. Can you add to that as well? We can dialogue with that.
There's compromise.
There's compromise. It doesn't need to be stamped to so and so and so. I have to give X. No. The thing is, I have an agenda as well. I want to start seeing, and you want to develop the area. You want to win again, whatever the case might be. But we have to be able to see at the core of it is young people or lives in general, because there's young people, there's older people, not just Genosha, the entire Port Loyola,
and there are people who are gang and people who are innocent.
North side, right, exactly. So beyond that, we have to start think or go beyond emotional discussions and getting upset, and we say, okay, no, we could. We don't have our civic. My thing is, well, you know what? Let's do some programs. Let's see what we could do some programs in there. No, if the basketball players and producers can come together, we could create our own sports nights. We could do different things. There is opportunity within the building because we're already invested in it. So let's see what we can do collectively. And so if they allow that to happen, we don't have an issue, because then we can use that to build a platform. I want to say this, but I got an MBA, because I have a student right now. That they're looking up to this guy, saying that, man, this one of the. When I see him play, I'm like, yo, we are there, man. When I hear Kendoyll's music, we are there. So let's step up to the next platform. Let's step it up, and then we could get there. You know, we don't watch Jamaica. I don't watch Jamaica all the time. I tell her here about Usain Bolt. I mean, no beef, but you know, I want to see
any other dancehall reggae artist coming out of Jamaica. Right?
Well, I mean, I just want to see. I want to see our potential be realized. Right. I want to see economic gain because there is, Marlon, there is, Sonny, there is a lot of gain in this.
We have human capital.
We have a lot.
I want to plug in one thing about the question earlier, like you said, like when you lose someone, you know. And I know 3 of us face this challenge. We are limited, you know.
I was
like,
going to
yes,
go ahead.
we are limited. You say you don't like talk. That's
Go ahead.
right.
Go ahead.
I can remember one time I was working with this guy. I had given him some instrumentals. What is his name? Reality Youth.
Yeah.
And he had a young guy who was an artist as well. I think his name was Warrior, his artist name. So I remember they were going to record at my studio. I think it was on a Friday. But I think I had band practice or something. So I told Reality Youth, let's postpone until Monday. So Monday came, nobody showed up. So I was in 88 doing some shopping, and like later on in the week, and I met Reality Youth. I asked him, what happened? You didn't come. He said, boy, Warrior dead. Wow. I said, what? He said, yes, the Friday when we were supposed to record, he was with, I think, his girlfriend or something, and they were by some van, and somebody just came up and shut up the church van or something.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember the newscast, but yeah, he died. And then I said to myself, man, if I had help, if I had at least maybe a few producers under me, he would have been at the studio that day. You know, and to this day, it still hurt me, you know, knowing that.
If you've been doing music.
Yeah.
And that's how you lose some people, and then that affect you because, like I said, we're limited. You know, I know enough times when like a child would come to me and said, you know, Poppy, please give me only 5. Sad that I tell him that I not even got a 5 to give you. You know, so the job is so huge, but like we are limited too. You know what I mean? And then like when you see you lose someone because of that situation, that mess with you. That mess with your mind. Like when he said that still mess with his mind. If he could have said, why, all right, well, go to his producer. Or I could have said, you know what? Hold on, man. Hold this D5 or this D10. You can keep them coming, you know, but then when you see a child demand so much and you can't help them, you lose them. And you don't forget them, that person still stay upon your mind. You know? So we are also limited. Our hands are all tied up, you know. We only can do so much. But we would love if people start to encourage us more, you know. Whenever we come to their businesses, whenever we come to them, don't think about, oh, it's just basketball for a week. No. You know how many new kids you meet every time? You know how much new dancers he meet? How much new music people he meet on a daily basis? You know, so that is also one of the stuff that, you know, make you lose people because they want so much from you and you can only do so much. Yeah.
This is
I know this is a. I thought Isana was gonna go there, but let me do it because it's probably better coming from me. I think one of the issues that we face in our country is that, and I always say we don't like looking in the mirror, but if we were to look in the mirror as a country, we must accept that we hold men to a different standard than women, and that young men in Belize are under a different level of pressure. I'm not saying that women don't have their challenges, please, I'm the first to speak about that. But in the context of what we're talking about, gang engagement, expectations of emotional intelligence from a very young age, that you must be this tough boy when you're small and not cry when you drop, and you know, you must hit somebody harder if they hit your back. What do you think, if you look at the kids today, and you mentioned before, they're far more aggressive than you can remember being when you were younger. What do you think we need to do differently? If somebody has a 2-year-old, that might be too late already, from 1 even, but a young child at home, and maybe the parent won't give it, but the teacher or the neighbor or the aunt or somebody else, What do we need to start doing for our young boys? So before the gang person can get to them, the gang leader can get to them, that they already have a sense of self-awareness of their worth.
The culture at home has to change. When I was younger, I remember people in community used to call us stupid, punk, you name it, you recall that. At school, you have that sometimes. I'm seeing a new dynamic now where boys are aggressed in communities by males, and then you have a school that's predominantly female, and that female doesn't understand that anger and makes further damage by maybe treating that child mismanaging the anger.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to imply anything that I don't know, but mismanaging the anger. And so you see where you have a dynamic where you have some males who are playing one part in the community, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. And then, or you have a mother at home, a single parent situation where she's frustrated, so she's verbal abusive. And the child goes to school and there's a female teacher at school, doesn't understand what that child is going through. She becomes verbal abusive, right? Or she becomes, like I said, she mismanages the situation because she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right? We'll say that she doesn't know. And the counselor in some schools don't have full-time counselors, part-time. They go on schedule.
I know.
And some schools will tell you that we can't see that child this week or next week because the counselor is booked out. So we have a situation where kids need psychological assistance, need psychological support. And it's getting worse because they're not getting that. And he jumps standard 1, standard 2, standard 6. He doesn't finish school because he can't manage the anger, he can't deal with the anger. So he goes to school. He's ripe for the pickings. That's a cycle, that's a
What
reality.
else? What
Right.
else would he
That's
end
a
up
reality.
doing?
So it starts very young, very young.
You know, I remember there were some guests who came on who said that they worked with young boys in our society who believe their life expectancy is going to be 21.
Right. Right.
And it's something that just sticks with me. I mean,
Yeah.
who thinks of life being over at 21? Who at 15 goes and kills knowing, and as much as people talk about the death penalty, they don't understand. These boys know that killing also equals a risk on their life already. That's a choice already made.
Yeah.
Sorry, when I get the call, and I was asked to come on the show to have this conversation, I said that I am going to say this. It's like we can only speak from our experiences.
Yeah.
Like if we do have this conversation again, I would like you guys to invite someone that really comes from that situation, that
Is presently.
that didn't have a mother and father coming up, because the reality is we can only speak from our experience. It's like I can't speak from that challenged child that comes from that household that is a massacre, so it's like even though we're trying to give answers, we can only give from our experiences, It's like I still can't relate to that child that has to go back home in that situation.
Yeah.
I can only relate to him that time, but when he goes back there, I don't know about that life, so the changes that I think that we need to make, and I see that has gotten our kids in this situation, is that two things. I was born in 1981, same time we got independence. I think it's the same time we got a TV. That television, that same television got our kids all messed up. With that American culture that we get from this TV, because it's American TV we're watching, and that messed up our thinking, because I remember growing up, I'd even miss TV, you know what I mean? But like when you do put on the TV, the influence that there is, it's not really positive, so that's number one. Number two is our whole society needs to change from the politician go up. Because if we know that people we are looking up to as leaders don't have morals and principles, it trickles right down to the students in the school, the child that is watching TV. So coming from an organized household with a mother and father that helped us.
Sorry.
All right. I'm sorry. But coming from a household without that at all, without any parents, without a violent household, I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
So, but we do need changes that we need to do. We need to stop to watch this square thing here and open a book.
Yeah.
I was fortunate, I don't know if I told you this already, but Mr. Sebastian Caetano was my social studies teacher for 5 years. I repeat in high school first form. He had a very serious influence in my life, one that I know that I felt comfortable speaking outside of the class. But he made himself open to that. You know, so your father was a very influential person in my life. Whenever I do see him now on the street, Mr. Sebastian Caetano, he has not forgotten me. You know, so we have influences that can help us.
Even teachers, yeah.
Right, even teachers. But we can't relate to what this child is really going through if we have not went through it ourselves. You know?
When I speak from my experience of how I grew up. I grew up with my father in jail. You know, I had a mother. She did her best, but I grew up looking to jail as the next thing because that was my reality. You didn't have people around you that were positive. I grew up in a very difficult situation. And like I said, not to demean what my mother did or to demean her, but to show that I know what it feels like to live in anger. Sonny and I went to school together. I was a fighter. I was told that I would be in jail by the time I was probably 12, you know, if it was possible, you know, but being incarcerated in some way, hostel somewhere. But because that was my life, I was so angry that I didn't know who I was. There was no male figure to look up to. And so because of arts application, I begin to look at what has the psychology of arts done for me. And so I began to research it and look at more things, look at more, Princeton does a research on the applications of art to development. And so I research to understand the psychology of it because I know that it did something more than just teach me to dance. It did something to me. And that plus the fact that I found God in my life helped me to navigate. But there was a period of my life that was, I think it could have been really bad. Did I not find access to dance?
Yeah.
Well, in my case, I didn't grow up, you know, with a lot of, you know, confusion in the home, but I could remember, you know, once I reached a certain age and I got the freedom, I started straying a bit, you know, being on the streets, you know, going to parties and stuff like that. And just one day, I just had to say, you know, Kendoyll, what are you doing with your life? People meet you on the street, they'd be like, what's up, Kendoyll, what are you doing? Couldn't even give an answer, you know. And then, you know, eventually I linked back to music. I started surrounding myself with people who share the same passion. And I guess that was what, you know, helped me to stay on track after that. Sometimes you just have to surround yourself with the right people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what it comes down to, right? It's your associations, right?
Correct.
The company you keep, and either
As much as we hated hearing our parents say birds of a feather flock
together,
together.
right? Yeah, it's true, right? So that if those associations have a particular agenda that you don't confirm with, you say, "Boy, this is enough for me."
Yeah.
Then you have to make that decision to consciously walk away from it.
Yeah, but that takes confidence and self-worth, and I think that's where that's what's missing. We don't build it in our children.
Right.
Now, I know, Darwin, and I know we're asking you a lot in terms of these issues, but with very specific purposes, and you've all pointed it out for yourself. Even with great parenting, sometimes young men in this country are getting sucked into this culture. And you are all shining examples of what can be possible if there is the proper outlet and opportunity and support in a particular field. And then you have moved beyond that to extend back to others as well. So absolute kudos to you all for what you have accomplished, but even more so for going the additional step and reaching out to younger children and trying to make the next generation have the same opportunities and skill sets that you do. My final point, just really, I wanted to get you to talk to, I mean, I don't think the young men who are on the streets are watching this right now, but the parents maybe, the people who make the decisions maybe, the people who allocate a budget for a art program or sports program or music program maybe. What would you say to them about the importance of having our young people have an outlet?
Well, I No, answer that question more, then I'll answer the next question. Sorry. You know? I want to speak directly to the youth.
Yeah.
You know? They need to know, like, they need to find out who they are inside. You know? Open a book. Found out where did you come from, Joseph Stamp? What is your biological existence? Where did you come from? Because you know what's happening, Marlene? A lot of these young men don't know who they are innately. You have to know who you are, what you stand for, what you like, what you don't like, and that's only going to happen by open up a book. Find out what's your history. Where did your parents come from? What is your destiny? You know, so these kids right now is not searching to find out who they really are as a black individual, because that is very important. The moment you know who you are, William, Marlena Isane,
That's right.
persons can't come and influence you too much. You know, you can stand alone, you know, and be confident in what you are because you know who you are. Your parents won't necessarily teach you that, you know. Your parents won't teach you who you are. You have to find out who you are. So my point to these youths, open a book. If you can't read, find Joseph, find Darwin, find Doyle. We can read. Let us read with you. These are all the stuff that you got to do. You know, this is not going to do basketball.
Yeah.
You know? So my point to these youths is that find out who you are.
Yeah.
Read about history, you know? And then this won't influence you. A TV won't influence you. That gang member won't be able to influence you because you know who you are and you know what you want to be in society. You know, so that is just my point of not answering that question, answering another question.
No, I think Darren's right, you know. For me, I guess I'm at the point in my life where I realize that after this phase, I become what they call really old school. and so now I try to talk to leaders a lot.
Yeah.
Because I have to, there needs to be a national dialogue
Yes.
on the benefits, not just economic benefit, but on the benefits of art, music, sports, and anything else that can build a young person. There are over 40 development assets a young person should have access to, right? These are part of that. And if something doesn't have an economic gain, then you have to build towards that. The same framework you create for something that you want to see an economic gain for in a country, it's the same way. When you put a kiosk in the park to create a generation of income for those businesses, it's the same framework you have to begin to look at for sports, for arts, the same way, right? Because it brings people into an arena and a space that can create money for other people who have businesses. And so there is a missing part of the puzzle that we're not looking at. We can't keep looking at it as a form of expression, right? And or if we just express ourselves. Expression can be something that's also psychological. You don't have to also be, okay, make it perfect, make it dance, make it enjoy itself. No, that can be a form of therapy as well, a form of development as well. So there is a discussion that we need to have in terms of what are the benefits that we're really missing when we don't give these programs the due.
And it helps us to build a Belizean identity.
Right.
Much like Usain Bolt is a part of Jamaica's
Right.
identity, and Bob Marley and dance hall music.
Right.
We need to build our own
Yeah.
in our sports, in our music, and in our art.
We need that. We need that repository. We need that.
We can't hang on to the Rihannas and the everybody else from the Caribbean. We need our own Belizean now.
We tell our story.
Yeah.
To tell our story.
Kendoyll?
Well, for the people who found themselves and know that their calling is music, based on my experience, once I realized that music is what I wanted to do, I began to, do research on the music industry. Like I read about, how money is made from music. And once I got those information, I then start reaching out to people who I know have gained success in the music industry. So you know, with all the knowledge I acquired over the years, I began, you know, following it like a blueprint, and it worked the same way for me. So find yourself, research on what you want to be, or what you know you want to be, research on that. You know how it can benefit you in the long run, find out what is the highest level you could reach, being who you want to be, you know, and go from there.
Okay, gentlemen, well, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thanks a lot.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for the
And
opportunity.
keep up the great work.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap up, so stay tuned.